Okay, we're back, and if you are unfamiliar, this is Osoroshii Saturday, and this is a show that is a little different from what I normally do on my channel. It is a show that used to only come out on Saturday. It's been a long time since I've done it. If it's your first time here on my channel, it is a show based on scary stories, some true, some creepypasta, and some just kind of frightening footage from Japan. If that's not your thing, skip this one, wait till Monday, and we'll go back to the J-Facts and things about Japan. But for now, I don't want to hold up any more time on this video. I want to get right into Osoroshii Saturday. Let's start. Well, for our first video, we're going to get right into a Shinrei point or a Beikon. There is an app now you can get in Japan where you can actually locate on Google Maps every single place that's in a haunted area around Japan. It will show a little ghost spot, just like you would have an onsen icon for any onsen in Japan. There is now an app called Beikon that will show you any different place. So this has made it much easier for me to research, find. I am going to go to some of these places. The first one though is a little bit farther away from me, out in Miyagi Prefecture. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. The notorious Yagi-Yama Bridge. Let's get right into the story. Yagi-Yama Bridge. According to the app Shinrei-kan or Daikon or Haunted Point application, there are many haunted bridges all over Japan. But the most notorious of these haunted bridges is the one known as Yagi-Yama Bridge in Miyagi Prefecture. Built in 1931, its grim history starts with the military, who used it to cross a gap in the mountains known simply as Ryukuchitani, which in translation means the mouth of the dragon. This valley drops a deadly 70 plus feet to a craggy dip. Now, it is not only known for its landmark, but also for the ruins of a nearby haunt known as Aoba Castle, which is said to have multiple samurai, onryo, and other yurei haunting the area long from its dark past. Nonetheless, the most notorious and grisly aspect of this bridge is the dark collection of suicide jumpers, similar to America's Golden Gate Bridge, as documented in the suicide documentary known as The Bridge. In fact, suicides became so popular on this bridge that the Japanese government had civil engineers build a meter-high barrier, which only slightly deterred those wishing to jump to their death. After which, they then doubled the height to 2 meters and finally added a convex gate overhang that would severely deter even the most determined jumpers. Now, your first thoughts on the popularity of this bridge might be its height or isolation, but there are far more isolated and taller bridges all around Japan. No, it is not its physical attributes or its location, but the fact that there are far more mysterious and possibly even paranormal reasons. Aoba Castle, the ruins which are nearby and mentioned earlier, are reported to be the point of contention, as it is said the grounds are haunted by the tortured souls of dead soldiers, handmaidens, and agitated spirits. One of these spirits is known by the simple name as the Woman in White. Apparently, this apparition has the form of an onryo, an angry woman's ghost. It is said to be little more than a white floating kimono or nightgown with a white ghostly face. That face is either blurry or without features aside from 2 black holes where the eyes should be. Ignoring this ghost is the best advice, as meeting its eyeless gaze is said to lead to a sort of trance or possession, which will either lead to the driver wrecking their car as they drive across this bridge, or even worse, pulling over, getting out of the car, and finding a way to jump off the edge of this bridge. As unbelievable as it sounds, even today, there are documented pictures of people still making their way over the nearly impossible barrier to commit suicide. One travel vlog entry by a man who loved to hike mountains all over Japan documented his own encounter. Now, I'm gonna recite from memory what exactly I remember from reading this, because this is what first caught my attention to this bridge and how I got into researching it a little bit more. Apparently, this guy was on a motorcycle. He was driving down the bridge, and he didn't really know too much about the area. His main thing was he wanted to be there for hiking. As I said, there's obviously a big valley which is made by two large mountains, and he wanted to hike one of these, which I don't know, but that's not the point of the story. The point is that while he was going across this bridge, he started to get this really tense and anxious feeling. He said it was something he had never had before on the road, and that as he started riding, he felt like someone was looking at him, which felt really weird because there was no other cars on the road at this time of the night. It was very late. He said he looked around, couldn't really see anybody else, couldn't see any other cars, but noticed some white out of the corner of his eye in his peripheral vision. When he looked through the barrier of this bridge, which I told you was about 2 meters high, he said he could see this sort of white drifting figure. At first he thought, is it like a trash bag blowing in the wind? Is it paper? But then he thought, how could it be that in the middle of this very, very high drop? That doesn't really make any sense. There's not even homes or a dump nearby where such a thing would catch wind. He took another quick glance, and finally he realized that it was some sort of ghostly woman figure, and that she was keeping pace with his motorcycle as he rode down the road. And this was starting to freak him out to the point that he thought, you know what? I need to just stare ahead and not look at this, and I think I can make it across to the other side. Now, this bridge is pretty long, so it would take you a few minutes at least. During this time, he began to get such a heavy influence by the ghost. He said it was like as if he was going into a dreamlike state, or like he was nodding off into a trance or a possession, to the point that he said it became very difficult to drive his motorcycle and that he had to slow down the speed, and he found himself eventually completely coming to a halt on the motorcycle. After which he said he got off, he thought, you know what, I just need to take a break. Maybe I need to get a couple, winks of sleep. Maybe I'm getting too tired. I don't know what's messing with me, but right now it's not safe because I don't feel like I can drive safely down and concentrate on staying focused on the road. But he said during that time, he suddenly started to cry. And he said he wasn't even feeling sad. He hadn't had anything bad happen in his life recently. And the weirdest thing about that is that this is something that is noticed about all the people who commit suicide on here. That when they look into their past, there doesn't seem to be any trigger. There doesn't seem to be any big event, like a death in the family, like a loss of a job, like a loss of face in Japan, which also can lead to it. They'd said most times it was people who were living the most average, normal lives, no debts or anything, and the same went for this guy too. But he said he started crying profusely. He started talking to himself. And he said he started to talk to himself about stuff that had nothing to do with his own life, about like damages he had suffered, about ways he had been betrayed, about wars that he had lost. And he said he was mumbling and crying and crying. And he said when he finally kind of got his head collected a little bit, just for a second, he realized he was midway of climbing the fence to get over, and that he could still see this white shape on the other side, just kind of like luring him forward. I don't know how much he could make out because they say this image is very blurry and faceless and there's no features really on it, but he said it had a come hither or a beckoning motion. And he said at that moment he realized how dreaded this place was, and he fell to his knees and started praying a Buddhist prayer or maybe a Shinto prayer profusely. And during that time, he was lucky enough that another driver coming across the bridge saw him there, like with tears in his eyes, praying profusely, pulled over and knew about the bridge because they were a local in the area, and said, look, I know why you're in this state right now. Come and get into my car. You're safer in there. I'll load your motorcycle into the back of my truck. And he drove him to the other side. He said the second they got over the bridge, the feeling disappeared and everything went back to normal. But that was one survivor of it that told their story, and it was a person who was out for hiking. That was it. They're not a paranormal explorer. They're not a ghost investigator or anything like that. He said it was just the weirdest experience he had ever had. So, Yagi Yama, and this is 100% real bridge. You can look it up. Miyagi Prefecture near Aoba Castle. Check it out if you want to. Alright, the next one we're going to get into is a bit of an exploration of an old story I had told that recently new information's come out about, and this is Kisaragi Station. Now, if you don't know the story of Kisaragi Station, let me go ahead and catch you up. I have told you about this before, but I've got new information that may find us thinking about it in a way that it might be more real than any of us ever thought. Kisaragi Station is a station that was brought up by a Nichan user who was writing to the forum on Nichan asking for help. Now, if you don't know what Nichan is, it's Japan's equivalent of 4chan. It came out first, it's the original, but it is a forum. It's got all its different boards. You can ask anything from about anime to directions on the train, and this is what this person was doing, asking about a train she had just started to take. Now, she's writing to people on the message board, and these messages have been saved and documented. Now, we do know a lot of people make up fake stories, you know, they post it to Xboard, and this is something that wasn't posted to Akorto, which is the equivalent to Xboard on 4chan. This was actually posted in, like I said, a directions board asking for map help, and that's what this person was doing. And they said they had taken their normal train that had always taken, that headed out to Shizuoka, and when they had started, the train started to go past some of the stops that it didn't normally go past, and eventually started to go even longer than it normally went. It was the same train she took every day, but it started to take longer and longer to go to each stop than it normally would, whereas it would be 5 minutes in between stops. It started to be 7 minutes, then 8, then 9, and got longer and longer. By the time she had been on it for a while, it had never reached the stop that she wanted to get off on, and in fact started to go past places she had never seen before. She started taking pictures of tunnels that it was going through that she had also never seen before, and on these tunnels were combinations of kanji that didn't exist in Japan. Like the combinations were just very strange, very weird combinations. You know, there is a certain amount of things, just like America, where we have a Martin Luther King Road everywhere in America. Well, there's the same type of thing in Japan. Most of these tunnels are called the same type of thing, or they have the same name in many different areas, or they only mix up so many different descriptions before they start to repeat themselves. And these were things like Akaikuma, and which would mean like dark red devil. It doesn't make any sense. You would never post this for the name of a tunnel in Japan. So there are these pictures being posted. They have now been found. So there's actually pictures of some of the tunnels that she was posting, and they don't look like they're manipulated pictures. The signs on the tunnels don't seem to be photoshopped in any way. And on top of it, people started to measure out the distance that she traveled as she was explaining that this train was going farther and farther out. And she also explained that it went double the amount of the route that the train would normally go to get to her station, and landed her in a station she had never seen before called Kisaragi Station. And that's where the name of this story comes from. She ended up in this station that doesn't exist anywhere in Japan. Kisaragi Station is not part of any train line anywhere. You can go look through the whole map of Japan, every single train line they have, which is a lot. And that's what these people did, of course, as an investigative team on Nichan, and they could not find this station. But the amount of time she said she traveled, and the amount of kilometers and minutes involved in each stop, marked an area that she said she was in, described as Kisaragi Station being somewhere around the mountains of Shizuoka. And she even said when she got off at Kisaragi Station that she could see tall mountains kind of headed up above the mist that was floating around the town. Where exactly this was, she wasn't sure. Her phone was barely getting any service. The maps weren't updating on her phone. And this was long enough ago that we didn't have all the same apps that we have now. I think it might have even been back when we had the flip phones, which in Japan, they still had internet, but it was very slow. So she was talking on Nichan via the internet on a flip phone, which, like I said, it's very slow. It's like dial-up speed. But she was chatting on there, getting some messages across there, and people were trying to help her at the same time. And they said, why don't you just at least ask somebody what the closest station is so that you can get back on and head home? Because she's like, I'm lost. I don't know what the station is. I don't know where I am right now. I don't know what train to take back. And usually what you do when you are in this situation, and sometimes it happens when you're just exploring the countryside, is you ask somebody, you know, Ichiban chikai eki wa doko desu ka? Where is the closest train station? And that's what she did. And the person said, no, there's no train station nearby. And she said she could still see the tracks of the train station she left, and she turned around and started walking, and the guy kept following her. And apparently this guy was really creepy that she had asked for directions. He only had one leg, and he was limping on crutches the whole time. And that he kept saying, I told you there's no station, there's no station. And she kept walking farther and farther back towards where she thought she got off at Kisaragi. And he was right, there was no station. It just seemed like the tracks went on forever and ever and ever and ever. And she thought, if I just stay walking next to these tracks, I don't know where I'm gonna end up. I might get even more lost. I don't know where the next station is, especially in these Inaka countryside towns. You may go for miles and miles before you see another train station. And even that train station may not be open at the time, because they may have only certain times that the train runs because so few people leave that town. So he said, I tell you what, I'll bring you in my car and I'll drive you to the closest station. And she started to ask people on Nichan, like, should I do this? Should I believe this guy? Should I follow his advice? And they're like, what other choice do you have? Now, this is kind of where the story conflicts with other stories. There was one that said the person with only one leg on crutches, he eventually got enveloped by the mist that was around these mountains and disappeared on the tracks, like she never saw him again. And then a second man came up and asked her if she needed a ride. And some of the stories just say the guy with the crutches and one leg asked her if she wanted a ride. But no matter what, she took a ride with an older man, probably in his 60s. And she said he was dressed like just a normal salaryman. And he said, look, if you're lost, I can just drive you to the next station. I'm on my way there anyway to pick up my family. So she thought, well, he's a family guy. He's going to the station, seems safe. Well, this is where the story really gets its creepy end from, because apparently as soon as she got in this car, at first things seemed totally normal. He was happy, he was talking, and then she said, as she kept updating on Nichan about her situation, that now the guy was starting to mumble under his breath about things that didn't make any sense, and that instead of heading towards the tracks or a station nearby, that he had changed ways and started going down a road that went around a mountain, and on that mountain it led up into mist, and we never heard from her again. She was never able to be found. No one ever found out what happened to this girl. They were able to track the phone to see that it actually came from the area she was talking about, but police went to investigate this. They thought it was a Nichan prank. The people who talked to this girl tried to go out to those areas and couldn't find this station. Some of the theories that came out, now we're going to get into the realm of conspiracy theory, paranormal theory. I'm not telling you what to believe or what I believe. I personally just keep my mind open to everything and try not to tell anybody, you're wrong, your idea is totally wrong. So here's what I got. I got two different theories. One was that she had crossed into a parallel dimension. When she took this train, for some reason on that day, it ran into a sort of back rooms area. If you don't know what that means, it's just like a video game. Sometimes you keep walking into a wall until you no-clip and go through that wall and fall through all the scenery. Well, apparently there's certain times in our reality, if you believe in the holographic universe theory or the simulation theory, that we can run into no-clipping in our own reality and you break into another one or another program or another reality or another dimension. Like I said, not something I want to say is real or fake or anything. My mind is really up in the air as far as whether or not simulation or holographic theory is correct. On top of that, the other one was some sort of parallel dimension in the sense of a paranormal one, so that there was a world beyond this one, that somehow on this day, that train was able to enter a gateway where the rules, the physics, and everything were changed, and the people she met there were not the normal humans she was used to in this world. I'll leave it up to you guys. You can let me know in the comments down below what you think of this new evidence and what you think about how real this story is or the theories behind it. Alright, for our last bit today, we've got a commercial from Japan. I had never seen this one before until probably 4 or 5 months ago. I found this when I was just digging through old ghost footage. And apparently what this is a very old Game Boy Advance commercial from the 1990s, where in the background we can see a ghost. It's caught on film, and it's something where even me, the very skeptical ghost believer, is kind of convinced something weird was going on in this video. Now, what exactly it is, I'll leave that up to you. I'll give you a couple of my own theories, but please realize I'm not trying to force my ideas onto you. So what we've got is a very famous Japanese comedian here. He's playing the Game Boy Advance. And if you just keep your eye on the back window behind his head, you can see something strange show up in the window. Now, if you didn't see it, I'll show you one more time and I'll slow it down and zoom in on it. Okay, so what we can at least see here for sure coming into the photo, matching the shaders, matching the colors, matching the chroma key, matching everything within this video, is some sort of pale figure. Now, what this pale figure is or who this pale figure is, we do not know. They have been questioned before, the makers of this commercial, by multiple different media, from Nichan themselves on their own board, and they've never answered it. They said they don't even know what this is in the background. Now, some people have said probably it's a staff member who accidentally walked into the photo, but why they would be on the opposite side of a set that was filming would be a little bit odd. Why they wouldn't know that they were filming their own commercial that they're the staff and part of, that seems a little bit odd too, just because I know the way Japanese people work and they are very, very concise with how they set things up. Like when it's time to roll and it's time to film, they're very strict with like, this is quiet on the set, nobody moves around, nobody just starts wondering. And anybody who's ever worked on any kind of small film, even just a very amateur one, you usually know when somebody's filming. They make it pretty apparent. They're not just like, I guess we'll just turn the camera on and off randomly. So what is this? Could be maybe an actor who didn't know that they were filming, or perhaps someone who came from a direction that wasn't part of the staff or part of the set that wandered on, or maybe it really is a ghost. Like I said, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys. I am not completely sure, so you let me know in the comments below. Well guys, there you go, another new Osoroshii Saturday. Yes, these are coming back. Yes, I'm making more of these, and yes, I have a ton of stories saved up from when I made these a long time ago, and I've got a lot more to tell you. I'm just getting back into this, so if there's something I've forgotten to add or something you liked a lot from the old series that you want to see come back, let me know in the comments below. If you have a certain story you want to hear about or have me investigate, if there's an area of Japan you want me to look into more that's supposedly some kind of haunted point, let me know also. Until next time guys, this has been Osoroshii Saturday. I hope you like this coming back. If you do, could you give me a thumbs up down below? See ya.